I've been skiing for as long as I can remember. My parents were competitive skiers, and that's actually how they met. So it was important to them that my siblings and I learned to ski as soon as we could walk. Fast forward about 20 years, and here I am at 21, a senior in college. A few winters ago, I went on a ski trip with my friends Alex, Jordan, and Sam. I can't recall which mountain we were at. Alex had booked everything, and Jordan was driving. But it was massive, with at least 7 ski lifts. If I had to guess, it was Killington. We skied for nearly 2 full days, and I'm sure we missed plenty of trails. It was that big. On the second day, after a solid day of skiing, we had a good idea of the trails we liked, so we decided to push our limits, as we often did. I won't lie. We had a few fireball shooters to keep the energy up. The double black diamonds were exhilarating, and racing down each slope felt like a game. With about an hour left until the lifts closed, we were exhausted but didn't want to leave just yet. While we were at the top of the lift, 2 stunning girls approached us, one brunette and one blonde. They were absolutely gorgeous, and I don't say that lightly. It was disarming. They introduced themselves as Mia and Zoe, and mentioned they were bored because the mountain was filled with older folks, which was something I had noticed too. It made sense why they approached us. Young guys who seemed to be having a good time. Zoe seemed like a seasoned skier, asking Sam all sorts of technical questions about his skis. Sam and Jordan had their own expensive gear, while Alex and I were renting, which impressed the girls. Mia joked about our fireball shooters, and we laughed, saying the alcohol unlocked our true ski potential or something equally silly. To our surprise, Zoe pulled out an unmarked bottle and challenged us, calling us lightweights for sticking to fireball. We accepted the challenge and took swigs from their bottle. I noticed Jordan was starting to get a little too into it. He tends to drink more than he can handle. I made a mental note to be cautious, as something about the whole situation felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that 2 beautiful girls would want anything to do with a bunch of college guys like us, especially since we were all wearing helmets. Things were going well, though. Sam was being his usual flirtatious self, and Mia seemed to be enjoying it. I figured we'd spend the rest of the day skiing with them, and maybe they had plans for after the lifts closed. Then Zoe asked if we had skied a trail called Devil's Forest, which I didn't recognize. Our friend Chris would have known the trail map by heart, but he wasn't with us. We told the girls we hadn't skied it, and they explained it was a glade trail, basically skiing through trees, and that it was rarely open. We loved glades, so we were intrigued. We told them we were game, and they motioned for us to follow. We reached a point where we had to take off our skis and walk slightly uphill. I noticed we were in a pretty desolate part of the mountain. The snow was untouched, and there was no one around. The thought of an adventure was exciting, so I didn't think much of it. Alex and I hung back a bit, and I could tell he was uneasy. I asked him what was on his mind. We considered ourselves the rational ones in the group. Sam was unpredictable, and Jordan would follow a girl anywhere. Alex mentioned it was strange that we had to walk to reach a trail, and I agreed. I had never had to hike to get to a ski run before. We decided to keep our eyes open. After all, what could 2 girls do to 4 guys? As we followed, the terrain leveled out, and we caught up with Sam and Jordan, who had made good progress. Jordan had his arm around Zoe, who was laughing and smiling. They pointed ahead, and we saw a downward slope. I sighed, wishing Chris was with us. He would have known exactly where we were. Alex asked the girls if they were sure this was a real trail. They assured us it was, and that it would lead us back to the lifts. Before I could say anything, Zoe pulled out the bottle again and insisted we finish it. Sam and Jordan took hefty swigs, but when it got to Alex, he said he'd had enough. I could have sworn I saw Zoe's smile turn into a scowl for a split second, but it was gone before I could blink. Alex reluctantly took the bottle, and when it got to me, I pretended to drink. Something about the situation felt wrong, and I handed the bottle back to Zoe, who put it away. I realized I hadn't seen either girl drink anything this whole time. I checked my phone. Half an hour until the lifts closed. I tried to come up with an excuse to avoid skiing this trail, saying we wouldn't have enough time to get back. The girls insisted we would, and then, without warning, they took off down the slope, telling us to follow if we could. Sam and Jordan immediately followed, clearly hoping for something more than just skiing. Alex and I exchanged worried glances but felt we had no choice but to follow. I let Alex lead since this was a challenging slope, and skiing in the forest can be tricky. When we reached the bottom, I felt a wave of relief. The four of them were there, laughing and flirting as if nothing was wrong. But then I noticed something was off. There was no lift in sight, just trees surrounding us. I asked the girls where the lift was, and they told me not to worry, that it was close by. They said they'd take us there in a few minutes. I relaxed a bit, thinking I was overreacting. But then I heard a thump in the snow. I turned to see Jordan passed out on his back. The girls laughed, calling him a lightweight, but I knew it was serious. Before I could react, Sam slumped over too. Panic set in as I rushed to them, unclipping my skis. They were breathing, but I was horrified. Alex stepped toward the girls, demanding to know what was going on. They feigned shock, claiming they had no idea. But when Alex took another step, he too collapsed in the snow. I was in shock, unable to comprehend what was happening. My head spun and I felt dizzy. I sat down in the snow, trying to stay conscious. I yelled at the girls, demanding to know what they had given us, but they didn't respond. I felt my body going numb, but I fought to stay awake. Eventually, Mia turned to Zoe and said something like, "He must not have drunk enough." Zoe cursed and told Mia they had to go. I was frozen in place, watching as they unclipped their skis and took Sam and Jordan's skis before trudging off into the woods. I knew I had to do something, but my body still felt heavy. I couldn't let them walk away with my friend's skis. I realized they wouldn't be able to move quickly through the snow, so I stumbled after them, determined to keep them in sight. I followed their tracks for a few minutes until the trees opened up to a clearing, revealing a road. In the distance, I spotted a van parked. My heart sank as I saw four big guys step out to intercept the girls. They gestured for the guys to get back in the van, and one of them pointed directly at me. I realized I was in way over my head and felt foolish for leaving my friends behind. The guys in the van debated whether to chase me or not, and I wasn't sticking around to find out. I turned and wobbled back the way I came, hoping to find my friends. I eventually located them, still unconscious in the snow. I figured Alex had the best chance of waking up, so I shook him awake, using snow to splash his face. After a few moments, he finally stirred. I quickly explained what had happened, still in disbelief. We tried waking Sam and Jordan, but they wouldn't budge. Alex and I realized we had no better option than to wait and hope those guys didn't come after us. Thankfully, they never did. We waited about an hour for our friends to wake up, and when they finally did, we filled them in on everything. We had so many questions. Who were those girls? Who were the guys in the van? What were they planning to do with us? The thought of it sent chills down my spine. It was terrifying to think about what could have happened if I hadn't been quick enough to pretend to drink. The best-case scenario was waking up robbed, but even that would have been awful. Something told me they weren't just after our wallets. I mean, who keeps valuables on them while skiing? Sure, Sam and Jordan's expensive skis were worth something, but it felt like overkill. How would those girls even know we had nice gear instead of rentals? Nothing added up. Finding our car was a nightmare. Reporting everything to the police was a hassle. The drive home felt endless. The mountain staff promised to investigate, but we had to leave before we could verify anything. The police took it seriously and said they'd keep us updated if anything came up. I think it even made local news, but it's been years now, and they never found anything. To this day, we have no idea what kind of drug they used on us. Nothing online described anything that could knock us out so quickly, especially in such small amounts. Our best guess is that it was a mix of substances, which makes sense because we all felt woozy when we finally woke up. Those girls and whoever else was involved were clearly dangerous. I can only hope it was just a robbery and nothing more sinister.